You've probably heard it before, right? That old rule of thumb about the perfect age gap in a marriage. It's this idea a lot of us grew up hearing about, but in today's world, it's something we really need to take a closer look at. So let's just cut right to the chase and ask the big question. When we're talking about a lifelong partnership, does the number of years between two people actually make a difference to their happiness? Does it really matter? Okay, so to figure out where we stand now, we first have to understand where this whole idea came from in the first place. So let's kind of rewind the clock a bit and explore that old-fashioned way of thinking. And listen, in the past, we're not just talking about a couple of years. We're talking about a gap of 10, 15, or even 20 years, with the man being way older. And this wasn't just common. For a lot of people, it was actually seen as the perfect setup for a marriage. So what was the thinking behind this? Well, a lot of it was really rooted in ideas about control and structure. The belief was that a much older husband would naturally get more respect, which would make his younger wife more submissive. And for her family, well, it meant they felt she was in safe hands, with an older, more established guy who could, guide her. But here's where it gets really interesting, and a bit messy. This whole way of thinking was never applied fairly to everyone, and that leads us straight into a huge, very persistent double standard in society. Think about it. When the man is older, it's often seen as a good thing, a sign of stability. The whole relationship is accepted, sometimes even celebrated. But what happens when you flip that script? If the woman is the older one, suddenly it's shocking. It's seen as a choice that goes against society, and it just opens the door for all kinds of judgment and questions. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures that hypocrisy in the real world. A celebrity might get a pass, it's just part of their unconventional lifestyle. But for an everyday woman choosing a younger partner, well, that often brings on some really intense criticism. It just goes to show how the exact same situation is seen through two totally different lenses. And this double standard, it goes beyond just the age gap itself. There's this massive societal pressure, especially on women, to get married by a certain age. Like this quote says, if a woman is 30 and unmarried, people start to think, oh, something must be wrong with her. It's a kind of pressure that men just don't face in the same way. But things are changing. And that brings us to our next section, the reality of how relationships are evolving in the world today. It's a simple statement, isn't it? Thinking is changing. But wow, it's a powerful one. All those strict, unspoken rules from the past, the ones that told us who should be with whom and why, they're starting to fade. And in their place, a new, much more personal idea of what makes a partnership actually work is taking hold. So what's actually causing this big shift? Well, for one, women are more educated and independent than they've ever been. A lot of women are financially successful, sometimes even earning more than their partners. And in this new reality, personal choice and what makes you happy are finally starting to matter more than old, outdated traditions. And all of this leads us to a whole new way of defining a partnership. We're moving away from looking at external things like age, and instead we're focusing on what's on the inside, a real, genuine connection that's built on shared values. So if it's not about age, then what are the key ingredients? Well, it pretty much boils down to these three things: a real bond, a deep understanding of each other, and most importantly, mutual respect. Look, these aren't some revolutionary new ideas. They're the timeless pillars of any healthy relationship. It's just that now, they're finally getting the spotlight they deserve. All right, so we've looked at the past, we've looked at the present. Let's bring it all together and finally get an answer to that big question we started with. Here's the bottom line. The real foundation of a partnership that lasts isn't a number. It's not about who's older or by how many years. It's all about the quality of the connection, the respect you have for each other, and the commitment you both share to build a life together. That's it. And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. We've seen what the old tradition said, and we've seen how thinking is shifting today. But now the question is really for you. If you strip away all the things society tells you, what do you really believe is the true foundation of a successful relationship?